Your Honor, I object to this entire proceeding. My father is innocent, and I can prove it. Asterisk, what would you do if a 13-year-old girl stood up in a courtroom and declared herself her father's lawyer? Would you laugh like everyone else in that? Courtroom did, because what happened next left even the judge speechless. When Maya Thompson watched her janitor father get falsely accused of theft by the very law firm where he'd cleaned offices for 20 years, she did something nobody expected. Asterisk, this young girl was about to reveal a secret that would shake the entire legal system and expose a conspiracy that went all the way to the judge's own family. Asterisk.
Asterisk.
You won't believe how this story ends, so stay tuned with Bedtime Tales to find out.
Oh dear.
Viewer, if you're watching this story for the first time, I humbly request you write the location from where you're watching right now. Subscribe to Bedtime Tales and press the bell icon now to never miss our daily published news stories. Thank you. And let's dive into the full story. The morning Marcus Thompson arrived at Whitmore & Associates started like any other. The 53-year-old janitor hummed softly as he pushed his cleaning cart through the marble hallways, the same route he'd taken for 20 years. The brass nameplates gleamed from his careful polishing the night before, each one representing lawyers, who barely noticed him unless they needed something cleaned. "Morning, Mr. Marcus," called out Stephanie from reception. She was one of the few who treated him like a person, rather than invisible furniture. "Morning, Steph. How's that baby girl of yours? Growing like a weed. Did Maya get her science? Project turned in?" Marcus's face lit up with pride. She did. Built a whole model of the justice system. Used the law library here after hours. Mr. Whitmore gave permission years ago. Didn't mention that his 13-year-old daughter had spent those hours doing more than just homework. While he cleaned offices, Maya devoured legal textbooks, case studies, and court transcripts. It started as curiosity about the world her father serviced but couldn't access. Well, 3 years later, she understood law better than some first-year law students. The morning routine shattered when Richard Whitmore III burst through the main doors, his face twisted with rage. "Where is he? Where's that thieving janitor?" Marcus froze, his hand still on the mop handle. "Mr. Whitmore, is something wrong?" "Wrong." Richard's voice dripped with contempt. "The Hartley files are missing. Confidential documents worth millions. In that case, guess whose keycard accessed the secure filing room last night? I was cleaning, just like always. Save it for the police." Richard pulled out his phone, pressing charges. 20 years of letting you people in here, and this is how you repay us. You people. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Mr. Whitmore, I've never taken anything. You can check the cameras. The cameras conveniently malfunctioned during your shift." "How convenient." Within an hour, police officers led Marcus out in handcuffs as his coworkers watched in shock. Stephanie had tears in her eyes. The lawyers averted their gazes, already accepting his guilt because it was easier than questioning one of the senior partners at Jefferson Middle School. Maya was presenting her science project when the principal appeared at the classroom door. "Maya Thompson, please come with me." Her teacher, Mrs. Chin, frowned. "She's in the middle of her presentation. Now, please." In the hallway, the principal's face was grave. "Maya, your aunt is here to pick you up. There's been a family emergency." Maya's heart dropped. She had no aunt. Something had happened. To Dad, her father's friend, Mrs. Washington, waited in the office, her face etched with concern. "Baby girl, your daddy needs you to be strong right now. What happened? Is he hurt?" They arrested him at work. Said he stole something." Words hit Maya like a physical blow. Her father, the man who returned extra change at the grocery store, who taught her that integrity meant doing right even when no one was watching, accused of theft. "That's impossible." "I know, baby. But they've set bail at $50,000. We're trying to gather money. Take me to him." Maya's voice held steel that made her sound older than 13. That evening, Maya sat across from her father in the visiting room, separated by scratched plexiglass. Marcus tried to smile, but she could see the fear in his eyes. "Baby girl, I didn't do this, I know, Daddy." She placed her small hand against the glass. "Tell me everything, every detail." "Maya, you don't need to worry about. I've been reading those law books for 3 years. Daddy, while you cleaned, I studied. I know about discovery, evidence chains, reasonable doubt, no more than that public defender they assigned. You, who hasn't even returned your calls. So tell me everything. Marcus stared at his daughter, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. When did you grow up so fast? The moment they put handcuffs on my hero, she said quietly. Talk. We're going to prove your innocence. As visiting hours ended, Maya walked out with a notebook full of details and a determination that would soon shock everyone who'd already written off Marcus Thompson as just another statistic. They had no idea what was coming. The courthouse. Steps seemed to stretch endlessly as Maya climbed them 3 days later. Her best dress slightly too small, her father's case file clutched in a folder made from cardboard and hope. The preliminary hearing was set for 9 a.m., and she'd been preparing since dawn. Inside, the courtroom smelled of old wood and disappointment. Maya took a seat in the gallery, watching as defendants shuffled through like products on an assembly line of justice. Each one got maybe 5 minutes before their fate was decided by people who'd already forgotten their names. Case number 4851, State versus Marcus Thompson, the bailiff announced. Maya's father entered in an orange jumpsuit that made him look guilty before anyone said a word. His court-appointed lawyer, Mr. Brewster, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He'd met with Marcus exactly once for 10 minutes. Judge Eleanor Whitmore sided with the kind of stern authority that came from old money and older prejudices. Maya had researched her thoroughly. Harvard Law, third-generation judge, and aunt to Richard Whitmore III. The conflict of interest was so obvious it hurt, but nobody seemed to care. Mr. Thompson, you're charged with grand theft, breaking and entering, and corporate espionage. How do you plead? Brewster barely looked up from his phone. Not guilty, Your Honor. District Attorney James Crawford stood with the confidence of a man who'd never lost a case he cared about. Your Honor, the state presents compelling evidence. The defendant's keycard was used to access restricted areas. Valuable documents worth millions are missing. Security footage from that night is mysteriously corrupted. We request the defendant be held without bail as a flight risk. That's ridiculous. Marcus spoke up. I've worked there 20 years. I live in the same apartment. Where would I run to? Judge Whitmore's gavel cracked. The defendant will remain silent unless addressed directly. Maya watched her father shrink back, saw Brewster whisper something that sounded like, just take a plea deal, and felt her hands clench into fists. Crawford continued his theatrical performance. The Hartley files contained sensitive information about a billion-dollar merger. Only someone with inside access could have taken them. Mr. Thompson was the only non-executive in the building that night. "'Cause I was cleaning," Marcus protested. Another crack of the gavel, Mr. Brewster. Control your client. Brewster shrugged apologetically, still texting with one hand. Maya wanted to scream. This wasn't justice. It was a railroad job, and her father was tied to the tracks. Furthermore, Crawford produced a manila envelope with flourish. We have evidence that Mr. Thompson has been accessing the law library after hours without proper authorization, clearly casing the firm for valuable information. Maya's heart sank. They were twisting her study sessions into something sinister. Judge Whitmore leaned forward. Does the defense have anything to say? Brewster finally put down his phone. Yes, Your Honor. My client is a, good person, hard worker, no prior record. That was it. That was the entire defense. Motion to hold without bail? Judge Whitmore asked. Your Honor, Crawford smiled, given the value of the stolen property and the defendant's clear breach of trust after 20 years of employment. The state believes objection. The word rang out clear and strong from the gallery. Every head turned. Maya stood, her chin raised, her folder held like a shield. Judge Whitmore's face darkened. Lady, sit down immediately. This is a court of law, not a school play. I'm aware of that, Your Honor. I'm also aware that under Michigan Court Rule 2.117, Section C, ineffective assistance of counsel is grounds for immediate intervention. The courtroom fell silent. Brewster's mouth hung open, like someone had slapped him with a fish. "What is your name?" Judge Whitmore's voice could have frozen fire. "Maya Thompson? I'm the defendant's daughter." "Bailiff, remove this child." "I'm 13 years old, Your Honor, under People v. Garcia. Minors may address the court in matters directly affecting their welfare and custody. With my father facing imprisonment, I absolutely have standing to speak." Crawford found his voice. "This is absurd. She's a child playing dress-up." "This child," Maya interrupted, "has noticed several procedural violations in the last 10 minutes. Would you like me to list them, or should I wait for the appellate court to do it?" Marcus stared at his daughter like he'd never seen her before. "Maya, baby, what are you doing?" She met his eyes across the courtroom. "But you taught me, Daddy. Standing up for what's right." Judge Whitmore's knuckles were white as she gripped her gavel. "Young lady, you are in contempt. Actually, I'm in possession of evidence that Mr. Brewster here has not reviewed evidence that proves my father's innocence. Evidence that suggests this entire case is built on fabrications and conflicts of interest that reach." She paused, looking directly at the judge, surprisingly high. The tension in the courtroom was electric. Phones appeared in the gallery. As people began recording, this was no longer just another preliminary hearing. "Your Honor," Maya continued, her voice steady, despite her racing heart, "I'm formally requesting to serve as co-counsel for my father's defense." The laughter started with Crawford, spread to Brewster, and rippled through the courtroom like a wave. Even some of the bailiffs were chuckling. Judge Whitmore wasn't laughing. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the young girl who stood unflinching amid the mockery. Something in Maya's posture, in the way she held that battered folder, in the legal citations she'd rattled off without notes, made the judge's stomach tighten with an unfamiliar sensation. It might have been fear. The laughter continued to echo through the courtroom as Maya stood her ground, her young face set with determination that belonged on someone 3 times her age. Judge Whitmore raised her gavel, ready to restore order, through force if necessary. Enough. The crack of wood on wood silenced the room. "Young lady, while your performance is admirable, this court does not entertain children playing lawyer. Bailiff Harrison, please escort Miss Thompson back to the gallery." "Your Honor," Maya's voice cut through clearly. "I'd like to reference State v. Caldwell, where the Michigan Supreme Court held that denying a defendant their choice of counsel, regardless of that counsel's age or formal certification, violates the Sixth Amendment when special circumstances apply." Bailiff Harrison hesitated, his hand hovering near Maya's shoulder. Even he could sense something was different about this situation. Crawford stood, his face red with indignation. "Your Honor, this is turning into a circus. A motion for immediate dismissal of this child and continuation of proceedings." "Seconded," Brewster added hastily, clearly embarrassed by being shown up by a teenager. Maya opened her folder and pulled out a document. "Before you rule on that motion, Your Honor, perhaps you should review this. It's a signed affidavit from my father, appointing me as his legal representative, witnessed and notarized. He has the right to choose his own counsel. She's 13. Crawford practically shouted. "Mozart was composing symphonies at 5, Maya replied calmly. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at 18. Age doesn't determine capability, Mr. Crawford. Or haven't you read Peterson versus State Board? Judge Whitmore's eyes flicked to her clerk, who was frantically looking up the case citations. Maya kept dropping like breadcrumbs. Each one checked out. Furthermore, Maya continued, stepping forward despite Bailiff Harrison's hovering presence, this court has a serious conflict of interest problem. Your Honor, you share a last name with Richard Whitmore, 3, the complainant in this case. Are you related? The judge's face went from red to white. That has no bearing, ethics rule. 2.11 states that a judge shall disqualify herself in any proceeding in which the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, including but not limited to instances where the judge has a personal LCE, bias or prejudice concerning a party, or personal knowledge of facts that are in dispute in the proceeding. How dare you? I dare because my father's freedom is at stake, Maya shot back. I dare because the public defender assigned to him has met with him for exactly 10 minutes and suggested he pled guilty to a crime he didn't commit. I dare because justice isn't just a word carved into marble buildings. It's supposed to mean something. The gallery was mesmerized. Several people were live streaming now, and the bailiffs didn't seem to know whether to stop them or not. "Sweetheart, you don't have to," Marcus began. "Yes, I do, Daddy." She turned to him, and for a moment she was just a scared 13-year-old. Then she straightened her shoulders and became something more. "You taught me that the law is supposed to protect everyone equally. Time to test that theory," Crawford tried. Another approach. "Your Honor, even if we entertained this absurd notion, the girl has no legal training, no bar certification, no standing." "I've been studying law for 3 years," Maya interrupted. "My father cleaned your offices, Mr. Crawford. I read every book in the Whitmore and Associates library. I've memorized the Michigan Rules of Criminal Procedure, the Federal Rules of Evidence, and roughly 300 relevant case precedents. Would you like me to quiz you on any of them?" It got a nervous chuckle from the gallery. Crawford's reputation for coasting on his assistant's work was well known. "As for certification," Maya continued, "Lincoln taught himself law and never went to law school. Neither did John Marshall, Clarence Darrow, or Robert H. Jackson. The bar exam is a modern invention, not a constitutional requirement." Judge Whitmore found her voice. "Be that as it may, this court has standards. Double standards, you mean?" Maya's voice hardened. "When rich defendants bring in entire teams of lawyers, you don't question their qualifications. When corporations hire million-dollar firms, you don't ask for their diplomas. But when a janitor's daughter tries to defend her innocent father, suddenly you're concerned about credentials." She pulled another document from her folder. "This is a motion for immediate disclosure of all evidence against my father. I'm invoking Brady versus Maryland and requesting access to the supposedly corrupted security footage, keycard logs, and any witness statements." "You can't just," Crawford started. "I can and I am, unless you're hiding something." The prosecutor's face went pale. Judge Whitmore looked like she'd swallowed something sour. "Your Honor," Maya pressed on, "I'm also filing a motion for your recusal based on familial connection to the complainant and a motion to dismiss. Based on prosecutorial misconduct, Mr. Crawford failed to disclose exculpatory evidence in his filing." "What exculpatory evidence?" Crawford demanded. Maya smiled for the first time. "The fact that 3 other keycards accessed that same room that night. The fact that the corrupted footage only affects certain cameras, not others. The fact that my father's keycard was used in 2 different locations at the exact same time, which is physically impossible unless he cloned himself." The courtroom erupted. Crawford was shouting objections. Brewster was trying to figure out what was happening, and Judge Whitmore was banging her gavel like she was trying to drive a nail through the bench. "Order, order." She turned her fury on Maya. "How could you possibly know any of that?" "Because unlike Mr. Brewster, I actually investigated, talked to the security guards, the cleaning staff, the IT department. You know, basic detective work that any competent lawyer would do if they actually cared about their client." She reached into her folder again. "I have sworn statements from 3 witnesses who saw other people in the building that night. I have time-stamped photos from the parking garage showing cars that shouldn't have been there. I have evidence that someone with administrator access tampered with the keycard system to frame my father." "This is impossible," Crawford muttered. "No," Maya replied. "What's impossible is expecting justice in a system where wealth determines worth, where connections matter more than truth, and where a 13-year-old has to do the job grown men are paid to do." Judge Whitmore had stopped banging her gavel. She stared at Maya with something between respect and fear. "And you gathered all this evidence, how?" "Legally," Maya said simply. "Unlike whoever framed my father, I didn't break any laws. Just refuse to accept that being poor means being powerless." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus Thompson had tears streaming down his face. The gallery was transfixed. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, caught up in the drama unfolding before them. Finally, Judge Whitmore spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "Miss Thompson, while your enthusiasm is noted, I cannot simply allow a child to practice law in my courtroom." "Then you leave me no choice," Maya said quietly. She pulled out her phone, connected to the courtroom's Wi-Fi, and held it up. "I'm live streaming this to my school's legal club. It's the Michigan Bar Association's Ethics Committee, and about 15 news outlets. The title of my stream is Judge Denies Defendant Right to Counsel Based on Age Discrimination. It already has 8,000 viewers." Crawford lunged forward. "She can't do that. Filming in court is illegal." It's actually Maya said Michigan court. Rule 8.109 allows for electronic recording when it serves the interest of justice. Given that you're trying to railroad my father while his appointed counsel plays Candy Crush, I'd say this qualifies. Sure enough, Brewster quickly shoved his phone into his pocket. Judge Whitmore's face cycled through several colors before. Settling on a defeated gray, she knew she was trapped. The live stream had grown to 12,000 viewers. The court of public opinion was in session. "We'll take a 30-minute recess," she announced weakly, to consider the unusual circumstances. As the judge fled to her chambers and the courtroom exploded into chaos, Maya walked to her father. The bailiffs, unsure of protocol, let her approach. "Baby girl," Marcus whispered through tears. "Where did you learn all that?" "But unbroken. From you, Daddy. You taught me to never give up when you're fighting for what's right. The law books just gave me the vocabulary." In her chambers, Judge Eleanor Whitmore stared at her phone as social media exploded. Hashtag Let Maya Speak was trending. Her nephew Richard was calling frantically. The Michigan Bar Association had already issued a statement about investigating the troubling allegations raised in the Thompson case. She had two choices: continue the charade and face the wrath of an awakened public, or do something unprecedented. Something that would change everything. When court reconvened, every seat was filled. News crews waited outside. The whole world, it seemed, was watching what Judge Eleanor Whitmore would do next. The judge took her seat slowly, feeling every one of her 65 years. She looked at Maya Thompson, 13 years old, standing in her too small dress, holding her cardboard folder like armor, defending her father with nothing but courage and carefully researched facts. "Miss Thompson," she began, and the courtroom held its breath. "Miss Thompson," Judge Whitmore began again, her voice carrying the weight of decades on the bench. "This court finds itself in an unprecedented situation. While there is no specific statute preventing a minor from representing a defendant in Michigan, neither is there precedent for allowing it." Maya stood straighter. "With respect, Your Honor, Brown v. Board of Education had no precedent either. Sometimes justice requires taking the first step." A murmur ran through the packed gallery. The live stream viewer count had climbed to 50,000. However, the judge continued, ignoring the interruption, given the serious nature of these proceedings and the constitutional rights at stake. "I'm willing to consider a compromise, Crawford." "Jumped up, Your Honor. I must object. Sit down, Mr. Crawford." The judge's tone brooked no argument. "Miss Thompson, I will allow you to present your case under one condition. You must demonstrate your competency by answering questions on criminal procedure, evidence, law, and constitutional rights. Consider it an oral bar exam." Maya's chin lifted. "I accept." "This is highly irregular," Crawford protested. "So is a 13-year-old citing case law more accurately than the prosecutor?" Judge Whitmore replied dryly. "Mr. Crawford, you may pose." "The first question." The DA's eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. He'd crush this presumptuous child and get back to his easy conviction. "Very well, Miss Thompson. Explain the concept of mens rea and its 4 levels under the Model Penal Code." Without hesitation, Maya responded, mens rea meaning guilty. Mind refers to the mental state required to establish criminal liability. The Model Penal Code identifies 4 levels: purposely, meaning conscious objective to engage in conduct; knowingly, awareness that conduct is of a particular nature; recklessly conscious disregard of substantial risk; and negligently, failure to be aware of substantial risk. However, in this case, the prosecution hasn't established any level of mens rea for my father, making their charges fundamentally flawed. Crawford's smile faltered. "What is the standard for admissibility of evidence under the federal rules?" Rule 401 defines relevant evidence as having any tendency to make a fact more or less probable than without the evidence. And the fact is, of consequence in determining the action. Rule 403 allows exclusion if probative value is substantially outweighed by danger of unfair prejudice, confusion, or misleading the jury. Speaking of which, your corrupted video evidence fails both standards, proves nothing, and exists solely to prejudice. The gallery was riveted. Someone whispered, "She's destroying him." "Define the Brady Doctrine," Crawford demanded, desperation creeping into his voice. Brady versus Maryland established that suppression of evidence favorable to the defendant violates due process where evidence is material to guilt or punishment. The prosecution has an affirmative duty to disclose exculpatory evidence. You've already violated Brady by failing to disclose the multiple keycard entries I mentioned earlier. Judge Whitmore intervened. "My turn, Ms. Thompson. What are the elements required to prove grand theft in Michigan?" Under Michigan compiled laws 750.356, the prosecution must prove: first, the property belonged to another. Second, the defendant took it without consent. Third, there was intent to permanently deprive. Fourth, the property exceeded $1,000 in value. Additionally, for the breaking and entering charge under MCL 750.110, they must prove unlawful entry with intent to commit a felony or larceny. She paused, then added, "They've proven none of these elements. My father had lawful access via his employment. No property has been recovered to establish taking, and they have no evidence of intent beyond speculation." Explain the concept of chain of custody, the judge continued. Chain of custody requires documentation of evidence handling from collection through presentation at trial. Each transfer must be recorded to prevent tampering or contamination. The supposedly corrupted video files have no documented chain. We don't know who handled them, when they were discovered, corrupted, or who had access to the systems. Brewster finally spoke up, perhaps realizing how badly he was being shown up. "What about double jeopardy protections?" Maya turned to him. With barely concealed disdain, "The Fifth Amendment prohibits trying someone twice for the same offense. Jeopardy attaches when the jury is sworn in a jury trial or when the first witness is sworn in a bench trial. It doesn't apply here yet, Mr. Brewster, but I'm sure you knew that from your extensive 10-minute preparation." The gallery laughed. Even some court officers were hiding smiles. Judge Whitmore asked several more questions about Miranda rights. Search and seizure, burden of proof. Maya answered each one perfectly, often adding case citations and explaining how they applied to her father's situation. Finally, Crawford tried one last desperate attack. "This is all theoretical knowledge. She has no practical experience, no understanding of how real courts work." "Real courts," Maya interrupted. "You mean courts where public defenders tell innocent people to plead guilty because it's easier? Where prosecutors hide evidence because winning matters more than justice? Where judges let their family connections influence proceedings?" She turned to address the gallery and the cameras. "I may be 13, but I know the difference between how courts are supposed to work and how they actually work. The question is, which version are we going to see today?" The courtroom fell silent. Marcus Thompson watched his daughter with awe. When had his little girl become this warrior? Judge Whitmore cleared her throat. "Miss Thompson, you've demonstrated remarkable knowledge of the law. However, knowledge alone doesn't make a lawyer. Can you handle the pressure of actual litigation?" "Try me," Maya said simply. The judge studied her for a long moment. Around them, history balanced on a knife's edge. The old guard of the legal system faced its future, and neither was backing down. "Very well," Judge Whitmore finally said. "This court will allow Maya Thompson to serve as co-counsel for the defense, with Mr. Brewster remaining as counsel of record for technical purposes." The gallery erupted. Crawford looked like he'd been punched. Brewster seemed relieved to have help, even from a teenager. "However," the judge continued, raising her voice over the noise, "Miss Thompson, you will be held to the same standards as any attorney, any violation of procedure, any contempt of court, and you will be removed immediately. Is that understood?" "Perfectly, Your Honor." "Then we'll proceed with the preliminary hearing. Mr. Crawford, call your first witness." As Crawford fumbled with his notes, trying to recalibrate his entire strategy, Maya opened her cardboard folder and pulled out meticulously organized documents. She'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years without knowing it. Every night her father worked late. Every legal text she'd devoured. Every injustice she'd witnessed had led to this courtroom, ready to make history. "Baby girl," Marcus whispered from the defendant's table. Maya looked at her father, the man who'd raised her alone, who'd worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, who'd never missed a school play or parent-teacher conference, despite exhaustion. The man who taught her that dignity wasn't about what job you had, but how you did it. "We already are, Daddy," she whispered back. "Now let's show them what Thompsons are made of." Crawford called his first witness, the security supervisor from Whitmore and Associates. As the man took the stand, Maya noticed his nervous glances. Toward the gallery, where Richard Whitmore III had just entered, his face dark with fury. The real battle was about to begin, and Maya Thompson, 13 years old, daughter of a janitor, defender of justice, was ready for war. "State your name for the record," Crawford began, attempting to regain his composure. "Bradley Hutchinson. I'm the night security supervisor at Whitmore and Associates." Crawford nodded, shuffling his papers. "Mr. Hutchinson, tell us about the night of October 15th. "Well, I was monitoring the security feeds when I noticed irregular keycard activity in the secure filing area. Marcus Thompson's card was used to access restricted zones multiple times between 11 o'clock p.m. and 2 a.m. And these were areas Mr. Thompson wasn't authorized to enter, correct? Janitors are only allowed in common areas and regular offices, not the secure document rooms." Maya made notes, her hands steady despite her racing heart. She caught something in Hutchinson's testimony that Crawford missed entirely. "What did you do when you noticed this activity?" Crawford continued. I tried to check the video feeds, but they were corrupted. Systems showed multiple failures." "How convenient for the defendant," Crawford said, playing to the gallery. No further questions. Judge Whitmore nodded. "Miss Thompson, your witness." Maya stood slowly, every eye in the courtroom on her. She approached the witness stand with the folder that had become her shield and sword. "Mr. Hutchinson, you said you were monitoring the feeds when you noticed the irregular activity. What time did you start your shift that night?" 11 p.m.? Interesting. So, the irregular activity began exactly when you arrived. "Well, I noticed it shortly after." Maya pulled out a document. "I have here the security log from October 15th. It shows you clocked in at 11:47 p.m., not 11. Were you lying about your start time, or just careless with the facts?" Hutchinson shifted uncomfortably. "I was. Approximately in. A criminal case approximately sends innocent people to prison. Mr. Hutchinson, let's be precise. You were 47 minutes late. What were you doing?" "I had car trouble." "Did you report this to your supervisor?" "No, I handled it quietly." Maya's eyes sharpened. "Like you handle other things quietly. Let me." "Who has administrator access to the keycard system?" "Several people, senior management, IT department heads, and security supervisors." "Security supervisors like you," Crawford objected. "Relevance?" "Goes to alternative theories of access," Your Honor, Maya responded smoothly. "Allow it," Judge Whitmore ruled. Maya continued. "So, you could have altered the keycard logs." I didn't ask if you would. I asked if you could." "Technically, yes." Maya pulled out another paper. "This is a printout of keycard data from October 15th. Can you explain why my father's card was used in the 3rd floor? Secure room at 11:33 p.m. And simultaneously in the basement storage area?" Hutchinson paled. "That must be a system error. A system error that coincidentally makes my father look guilty. How many other errors were there that night?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" Maya's voice rose slightly. "You're the security supervisor. Isn't it your job to know?" She didn't wait for an answer. "Let's talk about the video corruption. You said multiple cameras failed?" "Yes. Which ones specifically?" "The ones covering the secure filing area." "Only those? Not the lobby cameras? Not the parking garage?" "No, just the secure area." Maya smiled coldly. "So, in a building with 47 security cameras, only the 5 that would have shown who really accessed those files mysteriously corrupted? That's a very selective malfunction, wouldn't you say?" Crawford objected again. "Argumentative. Withdrawn," Maya said. but the damage was done. The gallery was murmuring. She returned to her table and pulled out a laptop. "Your Honor, I'd like to present Defense Exhibit A." "Objection," Crawford shouted. "We haven't had time to review." "It's security footage from the building across the street," Maya interrupted. "Publicly accessible, time-stamped, and directly relevant." Judge Whitmore considered. "I'll allow it." Maya connected the laptop to the courtroom screen. "Mr. Hutchinson, this is footage from the Meridian Bank building, which has a clear view of Whitmore and Associates employee entrance. Can you identify the person entering at 11:28 p.m.? The image was grainy, but clear enough. A figure in a security uniform was visible. That appears to be me. 19 minutes before you claim to clock in? And who's that with you?" Hutchinson's hands gripped the witness stand. "I don't know." "You don't know?" Maya zoomed in. "That's Richard Whitmore III, isn't it? The same Richard Whitmore who filed the complaint against my father?" The courtroom exploded. Crawford was on his feet, objecting. Richard Whitmore stormed toward the front, shouting about slander. Judge Whitmore hammered her gavel repeatedly. "Order, Mr. Whitmore. Sit down or be removed." Maya waited calmly for quiet to return. "Mr. Hutchinson, why was Richard Whitmore entering the building with you at 11:28 p.m. when he told police he wasn't there that night? We just happened to arrive at the same time." "Just happened." Maya pulled out another document. "This is Mr. Whitmore's official statement to police. He said, and I quote, 'I left the office at 6 p.m. and didn't return until the next morning when I discovered the theft.' Was he lying then? Or are you lying now?" Crawford tried to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, this is speculation." "It's evidence," Maya countered. "It's evidence that the prosecution either didn't bother to find or deliberately ignored." "Mr. Hutchinson, I'll ask you directly. Did Richard Whitmore III ask you to alter the keycard logs to frame my father?" "I know, absolutely not." "Then explain this." Maya produced yet another document. "Bank records showing a deposit of $10,000 into your account on October 16th. Where did that money come from?" Hutchinson was sweating now. "That was a loan from my brother." "Your brother?" "Who lives in Seattle and has been unemployed for 2 years. How did you public records, Mr. Hutchinson? Amazing what you can find when you actually look. Unlike Mr. Crawford, I did my homework." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I move to treat this witness as hostile and request a subpoena for his financial records and phone data." Judge Whitmore looked shaken. This wasn't going as anyone had expected. "Mr. Crawford," the prosecutor was flailing, "this is a fishing expedition. A child playing detective." "This child," Maya said firmly, "has uncovered more evidence in 3 days than you did in your entire investigation. Either you're incompetent or you're complicit. Which is it? How dare you? How dare you?" Maya's composure finally cracked, revealing the fury beneath. "You were ready to send my father to prison based on lies and doctored evidence. You didn't investigate because you didn't care. It's just a janitor to you, right? Not worth the effort." She turned back to Hutchinson. "One last question. Who else was in the building that night? Just the cleaning crew? Names?" "Marcus Thompson, Maria Gonzalez, and Samuel Chen." "That's interesting." Maya pulled out her final document, because this is the work schedule for October 15th. "Maria Gonzalez called in sick. Samuel Chen was on vacation. My father was the only janitor scheduled. So, who were you really letting into the building that night?" Hutchinson broke. "I want a lawyer." The courtroom erupted again. Judge Whitmore looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Richard Whitmore was being restrained by bailiffs as he tried to approach the witness stand. Maya turned to face the gallery. The cameras, the world watching. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what passes for justice when you're poor. Falsified evidence, perjured testimony, prosecutors who don't ask questions because they already decided you're guilty." She looked directly at Judge Whitmore. "Your Honor, I move for immediate dismissal of all charges and an investigation into prosecutorial misconduct and conspiracy to frame my client." The judge's voice was barely audible. "We'll take a 1-hour recess." As the courtroom cleared, Maya felt her legs shaking. The adrenaline that had carried her through was fading. She made it to her father's side just as her knees gave out. Marcus caught her. tears streaming down his face. "Baby girl, you're incredible." "I'm scared, Daddy," she admitted quietly. "I know, but you're the bravest person I've ever seen. Your mama would be so proud." In the hallway, camera crews swarmed. The hashtag Maya Thompson for justice was trending worldwide. Legal experts on news channels were calling it the most extraordinary courtroom performance they'd ever witnessed. But Maya wasn't done yet. The cross-examination had revealed the cracks in the prosecution's case. Now it was time to blow it wide open. During the recess, the courthouse hallways buzzed with frenzied energy. Reporters thrust microphones at anyone who emerged from the courtroom. Legal analysts debated on live television. The security footage Maya had uncovered was playing on every news channel. Maya sat in a quiet corner with her father, sharing a vending machine sandwich. Despite everything, they found comfort in this simple moment together. Maya, Marcus said softly, "Whatever happens, I need you to know how proud. Save the speech for after we win, Daddy." She squeezed his hand. "We're not done yet." Crawford approached them, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperation. "Listen, kid Miss Thompson, maybe we can work out a deal. Reduced charges, time served." "No deals," Maya said flatly. "You tried to destroy my father. Now I'm going to destroy your case. You got lucky with Hutchinson, you won't." Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have signed affidavits from 3 other janitors stating Richard Whitmore has been pressuring them to spy on rival firms. I have emails between Whitmore and Hutchinson discussing the October operation. I have evidence of 6 similar frame jobs over the past 5 years, all targeting employees who refused to participate in corporate espionage." For Crawford's face went white. "How could you possibly? Because while you were planning your victory party, I was doing what lawyers are supposed to do, seeking the truth." When court reconvened, Judge Whitmore looked haggard. The weight of her family name, her nephews, corruption, and the spectacular collapse of what should have been a simple case pressed on her shoulders. "Miss Thompson," she began, "while your cross-examination raised serious questions, the prosecution still has the right to present its full case." "Actually, Your Honor," Maya stood, "I'd like to call a witness for the defense." "This is still the prosecution's case in chief," Crawford protested. "Under Michigan Court Rule 6.201b3, the defense may call witnesses out of order when circumstances demand it. Given that the prosecution's key witness just invoked his Fifth Amendment rights, I'd say circumstances demand it." Judge Whitmore sighed. "Who do you wish to call?" "Maria Gonzalez." Crawford frowned. "She's not on any witness list." "Because you never bothered to interview her," Maya replied, "despite her being one of only 3 janitors with building access." A small Latina woman in her 50s entered the courtroom, clearly nervous but determined. After being sworn in, she sat rigidly in the witness chair. "Mrs. Gonzalez," Maya began gently, "how long have you worked at Whitmore and Associates?" 15 years. "Do you know my father?" "Yes. Marcus is a good man, the best of us." "You were scheduled to work on October 15th but called in sick. Were you actually ill?" Maria glanced nervously at Richard Whitmore. "No. Why did you call in sick?" "Was told to." The gallery stirred. Crawford jumped up. "Objection. Hearsay." "It's a statement by a party opponent's agent," Maya countered. "Exception to hearsay under Rule 801 D2D. Judge Whitmore nodded slowly. "Overruled." "Who told you not to come to work?" "Mr. Richard Whitmore." The courtroom erupted. Richard shot to his feet. "This is slander, I demand." "Sit down, Richard," Judge Whitmore said coldly. Her nephew's face flushed, but he complied. Maya continued. "Did he say why?" "Said there would be special cleaning that night. It's confidential. Only certain people could be there." "But my father was scheduled to work." "Well, that's what confused me. Why send me and Samuel home but keep Marcus?" "Did you tell anyone about this?" "I tried to warn Marcus, but Mr. Whitmore said if I contacted him, I'd be fired and deported." "Deported? Are you here illegally?" "No. I'm a citizen for 10 years. "But Mr. Whitmore, he knows I have family still waiting for papers. He said he has connections with ICE." Maya let that sink in. "What happened after October 15th?" "Mr. Whitmore came to my home, gave me $5,000 cash, said it was a bonus for being a loyal employee and keeping quiet. Did you keep the money? Maria reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Every dollar. I knew something bad happened. I knew they did something to Marcus. Maya took the envelope, showing the thick stack of bills to the court. Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as Defense Exhibit B, Mrs. Gonzalez. Is there anything else? Yes. Maria's voice grew stronger. I wasn't the first. Over the years, Mr. Whitmore has done this before. Maintenance workers, secretaries, mailroom staff. Always the ones he thinks can't fight back. Always minorities. Always people he thinks don't matter. Objection, Crawford shouted. Prejudicial and beyond scope. It goes to pattern of behavior and motive, Maya argued. I'll allow it, Judge Whitmore ruled, her voice heavy. Maya returned to her table and pulled out a thick manila folder. Mrs. Gonzalez has provided documentation of 7 other incidents. Employees framed, fired, or forced to resign when they wouldn't participate in corporate espionage or cover up executive misconduct. She spread the documents on the defense table. Financial records showing payments to security staff. Emails discussing removing problems. And then she held up a printed email from Richard Whitmore to Bradley Hutchinson, dated October 14th. Tomorrow night, make sure Thompson's card shows maximum access. We need this to stick. Richard Whitmore lunged from his seat. Those are privileged communications. Attorney-client, you're not an attorney, Mr. Whitmore, Maya said calmly. You're Executive Vice President of Operations, and these aren't legal communications. They're criminal conspiracy. She turned to Judge Whitmore. Your Honor, I'd like to call one more witness. Who? Richard Whitmore, 3. The judge's face was stone. Richard, take the stand. I refuse. This is a kangaroo court led by a child. Take the stand, Judge Whitmore repeated, or I'll hold you in contempt. As Richard Whitmore slowly walked to the witness stand, his expensive suit couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. He'd walked into that courtroom expecting to watch a janitor get railroaded. Instead, he faced a 13-year-old girl who'd unraveled years of corruption in a single morning. Maya approached him like a hunter stalking prey. Mr. Whitmore, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? This is ridiculous. Answer the question. I do, he snarled.
Good.
Let's talk about the Hartley files. You claim they were stolen on October 15th. Can you describe these files? Confidential merger documents worth millions. Interesting, because I have here a memo from Hartley Industries dated October 10th stating the merger was canceled. There were no valuable documents to steal because the deal was already dead. The color drained from Richard's face. So what were you really doing that night? Why frame my father for stealing documents that had no value? I don't have to answer, actually, you do. You're under oath, unless you want to invoke the Fifth Amendment like your security guard. Richard looked desperately at his aunt. Judge Whitmore stared back with disgust. The truth, Mr. Whitmore, Maya pressed. Why my father? Why that night? And in that moment, Richard Whitmore, 3 wealthy, powerful, untouchable, broke, just like Hutchinson had. He saw something, Richard whispered. Louder, please. He saw. Something, Richard shouted. 3 weeks ago, he was cleaning my office when I was shredding documents of embezzlement, skimming from client accounts. He didn't say anything, just left. But I knew he'd seen. I knew eventually, so you decided to frame him first. Destroy his credibility before he could expose you. I want my lawyer. I'm sure you do. Maya turned to Judge Whitmore. Your Honor, the defense rests. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus Thompson sat at the defense table, tears streaming down his face, not from sadness, but from vindication. His daughter, his baby girl, had done the impossible. Judge Whitmore spoke slowly, each word careful and deliberate. Mr. Crawford, does the prosecution wish to continue? Crawford looked at his shattered case, at Richard Whitmore, who just confessed to embezzlement and conspiracy, at the 13-year-old who destroyed them both. The prosecution moves to dismiss all charges against Marcus Thompson. So ordered. Gavel came down with finality. Mr. Thompson, you are free to go. Court officers, Please take Mr. Richard Whitmore III and Mr. Bradley Hutchinson into custody." As chaos erupted in the courtroom, Maya felt the strength leave her legs. She'd done it. David had slain Goliath with nothing but truth and determination. Marcus swept her into his arms, both of them crying now. "How did you know, baby girl? How did you know about the shredding?" Maya smiled through her tears. "I didn't, but you taught me to always clean thoroughly, even the wastebasket. I figured someone like him had to be hiding something. Sometimes the best evidence is in the trash." Round them, reporters clamored for interviews. Legal experts called it the most extraordinary defense in Michigan history. But for Maya and Marcus Thompson, it was simply justice, the kind that shouldn't require a 13-year-old to fight for it, but did. The system had failed them, so they'd beaten the system, and the world would never forget. As court officers led Richard Whitmore away in handcuffs, Maya found herself surrounded by reporters, all shouting questions at once. She held up her hand, and surprisingly, they quieted. "I'll answer your questions," she said, her young voice steady, despite exhaustion. "At first, I want to say something." The cameras focused on her small figure, still in her too-tight dress, still clutching her cardboard folder that had contained enough evidence to topple powerful men. What happened here today shouldn't have been necessary. Honestly, for 20 years, and it took his 13-year-old daughter to prove his innocence. How many others are sitting in jail right now because they didn't have someone to fight for them? She paused, looking directly into the nearest camera. The law says justice for all, but we all know that's not true. Justice has a price tag. If you can't afford it, you don't get it. That needs to change. Ms. Thompson, a reporter, called out, "How did you learn so much about law?" Maya smiled sadly. "When you're poor, you learn early that knowledge is the only weapon you can afford." Later that evening, in a small conference room the court had provided for privacy, Maya finally told the full story to a select group of journalists with her father's permission. "It started 3 years ago," she began, her hands wrapped around a cup of hot chocolate someone had brought her. "Dad had just gotten permission for me to wait in the Whitmore library while he worked late shifts. I was supposed to do homework." She glanced at her father with a small smile. "But have you ever been in a law library? All those books, all that knowledge just sitting there?" "I started reading out of curiosity. Criminal law, procedure, constitutional rights. The more I read, the more I understood why our neighborhood looked the way it did, why some people got second chances and others didn't." "But why keep it secret?" a journalist asked. "'Cause who would take a 10-year-old seriously? I told myself I was preparing for the future. Maybe law school someday. I never imagined." Her voice caught. "I never imagined I'd need it to save my dad." Marcus reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "Tell them about your notebook." Maya pulled out a worn composition book from her folder. "I kept notes on everything I learned. Case citations, legal principles, procedures. 3 years of study condensed into this." She flipped through pages covered in careful handwriting. "When Dad was arrested, I knew the public defender wouldn't have time to build a real defense, so I did it myself." The security footage from across the street, another reporter prompted, "How did you think to look there?" In law books, they always talk about alternative sources of evidence. I mapped every building with a view of Whitmore and Associates. The Meridian Bank building has public-facing security cameras. They post the feed on their website as a safety feature. I spent hours going through footage until I found what I needed. And the financial records, the emails? Maya's expression hardened. People like Richard Whitmore think they're untouchable, so they get sloppy. The emails were in a wrongful termination lawsuit filed 2 years ago. It's a public record if you know where to look. The financial records. Well, let's just say Mr. Hutchinson should use stronger passwords than his birthday. You hacked? I utilized publicly available information. Maya corrected firmly. Everything I found was legal to access. That's the irony. They broke laws to frame my father, but I followed every rule to expose them. A veteran legal correspondent leaned forward. "Maya, what you did today, seasoned attorneys with decades of experience couldn't have done it better. How did you stay so composed?" For the first time, Maya's mask slipped. She was, for a moment, just a 13-year-old girl who'd carried an impossible weight. I wasn't composed. I was terrified every second. But Dad always taught me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right despite the fear. "What's next for you?" someone asked. "School on Monday," Maya said. "Simply, I have a history test." Everyone laughed, breaking the tension. "But seriously," the reporter continued, "law schools will be fighting over you. Have you thought about your future?" Maya exchanged glances with her father. "Today taught me something. The law isn't just about books and courtrooms. It's about people. It's about making sure what happened to my dad doesn't happen to anyone else." "Oh, yes. I'll probably become a lawyer, but not the kind who works in towers like Whitmore and Associates. The kind who works for people like us." As the interview wound down, Judge Eleanor Whitmore appeared in the doorway. The reporters tensed, sensing another story. "Might I have a word with Miss Thompson?" the judge asked quietly. "Alone?" Maya looked at her father, who nodded. The room cleared, leaving just the 13-year-old girl and the 65-year-old judge. "I owe you an apology, Judge," Whitmore began. "And your father. I let my family connection cloud my judgment. I should have recused myself immediately." "Yes, you should have," Maya agreed bluntly. The judge smiled ruefully. "You don't pull punches, do you? Pulling punches is a luxury." "We can't afford, Your Honor?" "No, I suppose not." The judge sat down across from Maya. "I've been on the bench for 25 years. I've seen thousands of cases, hundreds of attorneys. I've never seen anything like what you did today. I did what I had to do." "No," Judge Whitmore corrected. "You did what was right. There's a difference. Many people would have given up, accepted the plea deal, moved on. You fought for truth." She pulled out a business card. "When you're ready, whether that's after high school or college, call me. I'll make sure you get into the best law school in the country. Full scholarship." Maya took the card carefully. "Why? Because the legal system needs more people like you. People who remember that justice isn't about winning. It's about truth." The judge stood to leave, then paused. "Your father raised an extraordinary young woman. Make sure he knows that." "He knows," Maya said softly. "But I'll tell him again." After the judge left, Maya found her father waiting in the hallway. Wordlessly, he opened his arms, and she collapsed into them, finally allowing herself to be. "A child again. I'm so tired, Daddy." "I know, baby girl. Let's go home." As they walked out of the courthouse, past the media trucks and the crowds, Maya looked back at the building where she'd fought for her father's freedom. The scales of justice carved into the stones seemed less like decoration and more like a promise one that she'd helped keep. "Dad," she said as they reached the bus stop. "Yeah, remember when I was little and you said I could be anything I wanted, of course? I think I know what I want to be now." Marcus smiled, pulling his daughter close as the bus arrived. "You already are, Maya. You already are. 3 years of secret study, 13 years of life, 1 day in court, and everything had changed. But for Maya Thompson, this was just the beginning." The next morning, Marcus Thompson woke in his own bed for the first time in a week. For a moment, he forgot everything that had happened. The arrest, the jail cell, the courtroom drama. He heard Maya in the kitchen humming while making breakfast, and it all came flooding back. His 13-year-old daughter had saved his life. "Morning, Daddy," Maya said as he entered their small kitchen. She was scrambling eggs standing on the step. Stool she'd used since she was 8. "I made coffee." Marcus poured himself a cup, watching his daughter move around the kitchen with the same determined efficiency she'd shown in court. "Shouldn't I be making you breakfast?" "You've made me breakfast for 13 years, Maya replied. "I can handle." One morning, they ate in comfortable silence until a knock at the door interrupted. Marcus tensed. A week ago, a morning knock had meant handcuffs, but Maya was already moving, checking through the peephole. "It's Mrs. Chen and some others," she said. Opening the door, Maya's teacher entered, followed by what seemed like half the neighborhood, Mrs. Washington from down the hall. Pastor Williams from the church they attended on holidays, Mr. Rodriguez. Who ran the corner store? Even elderly Mrs. Parker with her walker. "We saw the news," Mrs. Chin said simply. "We had to come." What followed was an impromptu celebration, Neighbors who'd barely spoken in years crowded into the small apartment, sharing food, stories, and tears. Everyone had a story about Marcus, how he'd fixed a sink without being asked, carried groceries. For elderly residents, never missed wishing someone happy birthday. "We knew you didn't do it," Mr. Rodriguez said firmly. 20 years you come to my store. Never once did you take even a penny extra in change. And this little warrior, Mrs. Washington ruffled Maya's hair. "We always knew she was special. But what she did yesterday?" Maya blushed, uncomfortable with the attention. She'd fought for justice, not fame. The apartment door opened again, and Stephanie from Whitmore and Associates appeared, looking nervous. The room fell silent. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I know I shouldn't be here, but I had to tell you both something." She turned to Marcus. "We all knew it was wrong. Every secretary, every maintenance worker, every person Richard Whitmore stepped on, we knew, but we were scared. Jobs are hard to find." "I understand," Marcus said gently. "No, you don't." Stephanie pulled out an envelope. "We took up a collection. Everyone who works support staff at the firm. It's not much, but we wanted to help with legal fees, or whatever you need." And Marcus opened the envelope, his eyes widening at the stack of bills. "Stephanie, I can't. You can, and you will," she said firmly. "And there's more. The partners, the ones not being arrested, held an emergency meeting. They want to offer you a position, not janitorial. Building services manager, triple your old salary." The room erupted in congratulations, but Maya noticed her father's hesitation. "I need to think about it," he said quietly. After the neighbors left, Maya and Marcus sat on their worn couch, the envelope of money between them. "You don't want to go back," Maya observed. 20 years I cleaned their offices, and they were ready to throw me away like garbage." Marcus sighed. "I walk those halls again?" "Then don't," Maya said simply. "Dad, you're free, not just from jail, from them. From thinking that job defined your worth. Bills don't pay themselves, baby girl. No, but we'll figure it out. We always do." The phone rang. Maya answered, listened, then held it out to her father. "It's someone from CNN. They want to interview us." Over the next several days, their small apartment became command central for a media storm. Every news outlet wanted their story. Talk shows offered appearances. Publishers wanted book deals. Civil rights organizations wanted Maya to speak at events. But the most important call came from the Michigan Attorney General's office. "Mr. Thompson." "Miss Thompson," the AG said over speakerphone, "we've launched a full investigation into Whitmore and Associates. What your daughter uncovered appears to be the tip of the iceberg. We found evidence of systematic discrimination, embezzlement, and racketeering going back years." "What do you need from us?" Maya asked. "Your testimony, for starters. But Miss Thompson, I have another proposition. My office runs a youth justice internship program. It's typically for high school seniors, but given your extraordinary capabilities, we'd like to offer you a position. You'd work with real prosecutors on real cases, focusing on wrongful convictions and civil rights violations." Maya's eyes lit up. "Really? 2 days a week after school, full days during summer. It's demanding, but I think you can handle." Yes," Maya said immediately. "Absolutely yes." As the call ended, Marcus watched his daughter's face glow with possibility. This was what vindication looked like, not just freedom from false charges, but the opening of doors that had always been closed. That evening, as they watched the news coverage of Richard Whitmore's bail hearing denied and the growing scandal at the law firm, Maya curled up against her father's side. "I'm proud of you, Daddy. You're proud of me, baby girl. You just took down a corrupt law firm and saved your old man from prison. But you're the one who taught me to fight for what's right. Every time you went to work with dignity. Every time you treated people with respect, even when they didn't deserve it. Every time you told me I could be anything you were teaching me." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Your mama would be so proud. Tell me about her again." It was a familiar request, one Maya made when she needed comfort. Marcus told the story he'd told 100 times. How he'd met Maya's mother in night school, both of them trying to better themselves. How she died when Maya was just 2, but not before making him promise to give their daughter every opportunity they'd never had. I kept that promise, Marcus said softly. Though I don't think either of us imagined it would lead here. She knew, Maya said confidently. Somewhere, somehow, she knew. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through their small window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, testimony to give, interviews to navigate, a job decision. To make school to attend? Maya would start her internship, balancing 8th grade with fighting for justice. Marcus would decide whether to return to Whitmore and Associates or chart a new path. But tonight, they were simply a father and daughter who'd faced the world. Together and won. Hey, Dad, Maya said sleepily. Yeah, baby girl, we make a pretty good team. Marcus smiled in the darkness. The best. Outside their window, the city sprawled with all its injustices and inequalities. But in one small apartment, hope had won. Truth had triumphed. And a 13-year-old girl had proven that justice wasn't about age or wealth or power. It was about courage, preparation, and the unwavering belief that right could defeat might. The system had tried to crush them. Instead, they changed the system. And this was only the beginning. 6 weeks after the trial that shocked the nation, Maya Thompson stood before a packed auditorium at the University of Michigan Law School. The audience, law students, professors, civil rights attorneys, and media waited in hushed anticipation. At 13, she was the youngest person ever invited to deliver the keynote at their annual Justice Conference. Good morning, Maya began, her voice clear and strong. 6 weeks ago, I was just a kid doing homework in a law library while my dad cleaned offices. Today, I stand here because the system failed, and I refuse to accept that failure. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. But I shouldn't be here. Not because I'm too young, but because what I did shouldn't have been necessary. In a just system, my father would never have been arrested. His public defender would have fought for him. The prosecutor would have sought truth, not just conviction rates. The audience was transfixed as Maya recounted not just the trial, but the 3 years of preparation that preceded it. She spoke of nights studying while her father mopped floors, of learning that justice had a price tag most couldn't afford, of discovering that the law could be both a weapon of oppression and a tool of liberation. People call me a prodigy, Maya continued. But I'm not special. I'm just a girl who had access to books and the time to read them. How many other kids could do what I did if they had the same opportunity? How many innocent people are in prison right now because their children couldn't save them? In the front row, Marcus Thompson watched his daughter with tears streaming down his face. Beside him sat Judge Eleanor Whitmore, who had become an unexpected ally in the weeks following the trial. She'd personally mentored Maya, helping her prepare for this speech and navigate the complexities of her new role as a youth advocate. The aftermath of the trial had brought seismic changes to their lives. The investigation into Whitmore and Associates had uncovered a web of corruption extending to 3 other major firms. 17 executives faced criminal charges. The firm itself had dissolved, its legitimate attorneys scattering to establishments that promised better ethical oversight. Marcus had ultimately declined the management position, instead accepting a role with the city of Detroit's newly formed Commission on Wrongful Convictions. His experience, combined with his daughter's fame, made him a powerful advocate for others who'd been falsely accused. The Attorney General's office has given me an incredible opportunity, Maya told the audience. Already worked on 3 cases of wrongful conviction. 3 innocent people who might have died in prison if someone hadn't looked closer. But for every case we catch, how many do we miss? She pulled out a stack of letters. These are from prisoners across the country, all claiming innocence, all begging for someone to believe them. I read every one. Wish I could help them all. But I'm 13 years old, and I have algebra homework. The audience laughed, breaking the tension. So I'm not here to be congratulated. I'm here to challenge you. Every law student, every attorney, every person in this room has more power than you realize. You can be the difference between justice and injustice. You can choose to see the janitors, the poor, the powerless. You can choose to fight for them. Maya's internship had been eye-opening. Working with seasoned prosecutors who actually cared about justice, she'd learned that the system could work when people made it work. She'd helped exonerate a man who'd spent 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, reuniting him with children who'd grown up without their father. But she'd also seen how many cases slipped through cracks, how many innocent people took plea deals because fighting seemed impossible, how the system still favored those with money and connections. Last week, Maya continued, I met a woman named Sandra Martinez. She's been in prison for 8 years for a robbery she didn't commit. Her public defender spent 12 minutes on her case. 12 minutes to determine 8 years of someone's life. When we dug deeper, we found alibi witnesses who were never interviewed, security footage that was never reviewed, evidence that was never tested. She paused, letting the weight of that sink in. Sandra has 3 children. They've spent 8 years without their mother because nobody took 13 minutes instead of 12. We're working to free her now. But those are 8 years she'll never get back. The speech continued for another 20 minutes, Maya weaving together legal theory, personal experience, and moral clarity in a way that left seasoned attorneys reconsidering their entire careers. She talked about the private tutoring she now received to balance her education with her advocacy work, about the scholarship funds pouring in from law schools eager to claim her future enrollment, about the book deal she'd turned down because my story isn't finished yet. I want to end with something my father taught me, Maya said, her voice softening. He used to say that dignity isn't about what job you have or how much money you make. It's about how you treat people and how you stand up for what's right. For 20 years, he cleaned offices with dignity. When they tried to take his freedom, we fought back with dignity. Now we work for justice with dignity. She looked directly at her father. Dad, can you stand up? Marcus rose reluctantly, uncomfortable with attention as always. This is my hero, Maya said simply. Not because he's perfect, but because he never stopped believing in justice. Even when justice stopped believing in him. Every janitor, every secretary, every person who's been told they don't matter, they're all heroes. They deserve. Lawyers who see that heroism, standing ovation that followed, lasted 5 minutes. Law students wiped tears. Professors reconsidered their curricula. The video of the speech would go viral within hours, inspiring a new generation of legal advocates. After the speech, at the reception, Maya was surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. Law school deans pitched their programs. Civil rights organizations offered partnerships. Publishers renewed their book deal offers. But Maya broke away from the crowd to find her father, who was standing quietly by the refreshment table, chatting with a janitor who worked at the law school. Ready to go home? She asked. Whenever you are, baby girl. As they walked to catch their bus, they still didn't own a car. Maya slipped her hand into her father's. Did I do okay? She asked, sounding like the 13-year-old she was. Changed lives today, Marcus said. But then, you've been doing that for a while now. They rode the bus home in comfortable silence. 2 people who'd faced the worst the system could throw at them, and emerged not just victorious, but purposeful. Maya had homework to finish. She was still an 8th grader, after all. Marcus had case files to review for the commission. The apartment was still small, their furniture still worn. But they had something worth more than money or fame. They had proven that justice wasn't just for the powerful. They had each other, and they had a mission that would drive them forward. Dad, Maya said as they climbed the stairs to their apartment. Yeah. Sandra Martinez's kids are coming to visit tomorrow. I told them their mom is coming home soon. Marcus stopped looking at his daughter with concern. Maya, you can't promise that. The legal system I can, and I did, Maya said firmly, because we're going to make it happen the same way we made it happen for you. The evidence is there, Dad. We just have to make people see it. Marcus recognized that look, the same determination, that had carried her through his trial. Okay, what do you need me to do? Just be there when they come. They need to see that false convictions don't define you forever. Their mom can come back and rebuild just like you did. The next afternoon, their small apartment hosted 3 scared children, Roberto, 15, Sophia, 12, and little Miguel, 7. They sat stiffly on the couch, suspicious and wary. 8 years of foster homes and broken promises had taught them not to. Hope Your mom didn't do it, Maya said simply, sitting cross-legged on the floor to be at their eye level. And I'm going to prove it. Everyone says that, Roberto responded, his voice bitter beyond his years. Lawyers, social workers, everyone makes promises. I'm not everyone, Maya replied. I'm someone who knows what it's like to almost lose a parent to a lie. She showed them the evidence she'd gathered, witness statements, timeline discrepancies, proof that their mother had been at work when the robbery occurred. But more than that, she showed them something they'd almost forgotten. Someone cared. Miguel, who barely remembered his mother, crawled into Marcus's lap. Did you really go to jail? I did, Marcus said gently. Were you scared every day? But you know what kept me going? Knowing I had someone who believed in me. We believe in Mama, Sophia whispered. Then she's already stronger than you know, Maya told her. Over the following weeks, Maya juggled school, her internship, and the Martinez case with fierce dedication. She recruited law students from her speaking engagements, created a social media campaign that went viral, and even got a prominent civil rights attorney to take the case pro bono. The day Sandra Martinez walked out of prison, her children waiting, with flowers Maya had helped them pick, was the day Maya truly understood her calling. It wasn't about being the youngest or the smartest or the most famous. It was about reunion, restoration, and justice that healed rather than just punished. Media was there, of course. The story of the 13-year-old who'd now helped free to innocent people was irresistible. But Maya directed all attention to the Martinez family's reunion, staying in the background as Sandra held her children for the first time in 8 years. Thank you, Sandra whispered to Maya later, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. That night, Maya updated her wall. Yes, she had a wall now, covered with letters from prisoners. Photos of families reunited, newspaper clippings of her cases. Each one represented a life touched, an injustice corrected, a family restored. Getting a little crowded up there, Marcus observed from her doorway. Good, Maya said. That means we're making a difference. She was different now than she'd been 6 weeks ago. The scared girl in the too small dress had evolved into something more, not just a symbol or a prodigy, but a genuine force for change. She'd learned to navigate media attention, political pressure, and legal complexity while still maintaining her core self. A daughter who loved her father and believed in justice. The Attorney General had already hinted at expanding her role, perhaps creating a youth justice program with Maya as its face. Law schools were designing curricula around her approach, combining legal knowledge with human empathy and relentless investigation. Her story was being taught in classrooms as an example of what one person could do when they refused to accept that's just how things are. But fame came with costs. There were threats from those who preferred the system as it was. There were adults who resented taking direction from a teenager. There were kids at school who treated her differently, unsure how to relate to someone, who spent weekends in prisons and courtrooms instead of malls and movies. Maya handled it all with the same grace she'd shown in court. She joined the drama club to stay connected to normal teenage life. She still rode the bus with her father. She still did her homework at the kitchen table while he cooked dinner. You know what the best part is? Maya said one evening, as they shared Chinese takeout while reviewing case files. What's that? A year ago, we thought success meant you keeping that janitor job. We thought justice meant accepting whatever scraps they threw us. Now we know better. Marcus smiled. And now No, we deserve better. Everyone does, Dad. Everyone deserves what we have now. Truth, dignity, and the chance to fight back. Their apartment buzzer rang. Another family seeking help. Another case of justice denied. Another opportunity to prove that the system could work when people made it work. As Maya went to answer the door, Marcus watched his daughter with pride and wonder. She'd saved him, yes, but more than that, she'd shown everyone that heroes didn't always wear capes or carry badges. Sometimes they were 13-year-old girls who read law books in empty libraries. Sometimes they were janitors who taught their daughters to fight for justice. Sometimes they were ordinary people who refused to accept that ordinary meant powerless. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman clutching a worn folder. Hope and desperation warring in her eyes. "Are you Maya Thompson?" they said. They said, "You help people like us." "I try," Maya said simply, ushering her in. "Tell me your story." And so it continued, one case at a time, one family at a time, one injustice at a time. Building a better world from a small apartment in Detroit with nothing but truth, courage, and the unshakable belief that justice delayed didn't have to mean justice denied. The system had tried to crush them. Instead, they became the change the system needed. The auditorium at the National Legal Aid Foundation's annual conference was packed to capacity. Attorneys, judges, and law students from across the country had come to hear the keynote speaker. A 14-year-old girl whose name had become synonymous with justice reform, Maya Thompson, stood backstage, adjusting the microphone clip to her new dress, one that fit perfectly. Purchased with her first paycheck from the Attorney General's Youth Justice Program. In the audience, Marcus sat in the front row, no longer in a janitor's uniform, wearing a suit befitting his role as Deputy Director of the Commission on Wrongful Convictions. "Ready, baby girl?" he asked, catching her eye from his seat. She nodded, thinking of how far they'd come from that terrifying day in the courthouse. 6 months had brought changes neither could have imagined, as the director introduced her. The youngest recipient of the AIB's Champion of Justice Award, Maya took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous, but she waited patiently for silence. "6 months ago," she began, "I stood in a courtroom and told a judge I was my father's lawyer. The people laughed. They said it was impossible, unprecedented, absurd. Today, I stand before you, having helped exonerate 17 innocent people. Not because I'm special, but because I refuse to accept that impossible meant unchangeable." She clicked a remote, and photos appeared on the screen behind her. Sandra Martinez with her children. An elderly man named William Foster Hood spent 23 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. A young mother named Kesha Brown, who'd lost her nursing career to false drug charges. Each of these people were failed by our system. Each of them would still be suffering if someone hadn't looked closer. And for every person we've helped, thousands more wait in cells, their innocence buried under bureaucracy and indifference. The speech was different from her others. More polished, yes, but also more urgent. 6 months of working within the system had shown her both its potential and its limitations. "I want to tell you about a letter I received last week," Maya continued, pulling out a crumpled envelope. It's from a 10-year-old boy named James. His mother has been in prison for 4 years.